He is trapped, stuck in a cycle he has not yet been able to break.
I want to believe this is the last time, but
he's out there somewhere. And we will try again.
After 10 years of storytelling, cryptic puzzles, and battles, City Walls has finally concluded the story the Pilots have been telling in these albums for a decade. With breathtaking visuals and references to past works, it is the most ambitious music video 21 Pilots have ever produced, and that is completely ignoring the fact they spent $1 million on it because of every thread it has had to tie up, every expectation people have had of it, because of the fundamental message this 10-year-long metaphor has been trying to tell us. And in true Pilots fashion, it is just as vague and confusing as every other statement they have made about the lore. Of course, they wouldn't make it entirely easy for us. Before we get started on the video, I'd just like to give my usual disclaimer that this is my interpretation of the song and the message I believe the Pilots to be talking about. I know many people interpret the lore differently, from being about mental health to being a criticism of the music industry, or even being something inherently political. I am not claiming my understanding of the story and the meaning is the only or correct one, and I highly encourage you to post your own interpretations below.
But for real, it's such a good song that encapsulates a lot of really what this story's been trying to tell.
With lore songs, the Pilots have a pattern of dividing them into two categories. The songs with lyrics that strictly focus on the lore, such as Nico and the Niners and Bandito, and the songs with lyrics that can be interpreted as being both relevant to the lore or having a mental health related message, such as Overcompensate, Paladin Straight, Morph, and Jumpsuit. City Walls falls into the former category. Lyrically, it seems to be strictly focused on telling a story, rather than having multiple meanings. This means that the lyrics can answer a few of our questions about what goes on in the music video, and what Clancy may be thinking or feeling, as well as finally clarifying some of the motivations for his actions. Firstly, City Walls documents Clancy's growth as a character. We see a lot of confidence, control, strength, and adaptability from him, whereas before he was fairly timid and unable to take the pace of change. The phrase "square up with me" means to settle an account, which illustrates that Clancy intends to make Nico pay, which already illustrates an element of courage not seen before. Moreover, the phrase is also a verb that means to assume the attitude of someone about to fight, showcasing this confidence as he believes he can successfully do that. "I can take your right, throw a left" is further fighting imagery, as it can refer to right or left hooks, or punches. This essentially means that Clancy can take a punch from Nico from the right, suggesting he has grown immune to it or stronger against it. And now he's asking for a challenge, for Nico to throw a left punch at him, which ultimately implies that he wants to overcome what he has not yet adapted to. He isn't backing down from the unexpected, or that which he is weak to, disadvantaged against. He wants to face and overcome everything that could be thrown at him. Similarly, this sentiment is echoed with "I'ma take you right to the chest," as the chest is the most vulnerable part of the body, considering it contains all the vital organs. He is confident he can beat Nico, so much so that he encourages Nico to throw whatever he can at him in order to further prompt growth. In the second verse, these two lyrical phrases are repeated again with some differences. "I can come to you" further depicts this intent to adapt or further grow through exposure, as he's offering to meet where Nico is, to meet on Nico's turf where he has the most control and where Clancy is the most disadvantaged. This is a huge difference from who we saw in Jumpsuit or Nico and the Niners, where Clancy was running from Nico or sneakily escaping to avoid him. "I can run on you" suggests that he only needs Nico to fuel him to keep going and fighting, which further highlights that development from being someone who runs from his troubles, avoids them, to someone who has actively embraced Nico's presence in his life, and is almost inspired to fight and keep going by him. There are two final things to note about these lyrical phrases as a whole. They both use imperatives, commands, showing his confidence as he believes he has the power and control to demand things of Nico. Furthermore, phrases such as "ama" and "square up" are informal language, illustrating a complete lack of respect to Nico, again reinforcing his confidence. He doesn't see Nico as someone with power over him anymore, as a superior, and he's willing to let this be known regardless of the consequences. Warpath etched in the surface further shows Clancy's confidence in battling Nico, as to etch something means to intentionally, permanently carve something into a surface that leaves an irreversible mark. This warpath is a path he is certain he wants to follow, even though it is something he cannot back out of. He is confident in following it to the end. There's also the likening of himself and the banditos to serpentine, animals that are associated not only with wisdom and cunning, but also with being predators, venomous, dangerous, which again illustrates a confidence that he believes he is a tangible threat to the bishops, which also likely speaks to his growth in strength that justifies that belief. He has become strong enough to the point he confidently believes he can be a threat to the bishops. In verse 2, there is an extended metaphor with stationery. I write a promise in pencil, but my loyalty's in pen. Use a mistake as a crooked stencil and we trace it back again. These are all items used to create, which could be considered a callback to the lyric in Bandito, I created this world to feel some control, destroy it if I want. In this situation, Clancy confidently believes he is in control. Furthermore, having multiple forms of stationery with pencils, pens, and stencils depicts an element of choice. He believes he has the freedom, power, and strength to do what he wants and deal with Nico how he wants. We also have in verse 2, you see in a city with no entrance there is not a retreat, which essentially just conveys this confidence Clancy has that the bishops will not escape this time. There is no retreat for them. It also suggests he is confident that he will be the one to defeat them, because the mention of retreating implies there is something they need to escape from in order to survive, that being Clancy. We then have structural techniques. There are bits of enjambment throughout the song that makes the lyrics flow continuously. It creates a breathless pace that almost depicts this idea that he isn't giving Nico the option to respond. And this is also assisted by the fast rapping of the first and second verse, as well as some of the verses being fairly long. It shows a degree of dominance or power over the situation, as well as confidence in himself in being able to say his piece to Nico, to stand up to Nico and tell him what he really thinks. One could even argue this shows Clancy has adapted to Nico, as in Paladin Strait he was interrupted by him at the end before being successful. This is Clancy adapting to Nico's latest trick, and then preventing him from being able to interrupt as a response to that. Similarly, we get a lot of first-person pronouns, which just demonstrates Clancy's control and power, as that constant lyrical presence is emblematic of a level of dominance and control. The lyrics also contain a semantic field of violence. Square up, throw, warpath, violence, rip, splitting. This showcases Clancy's confidence in his strength. He's become strong enough to physically resist Nico, to fight back, hence why it is affirmed in nearly every verse. Finally, the rhyme scheme is definitely something. The verses are quite long, so I'm not going to say the pattern, just show it through the power of editing. But you can see that the verses have a consistent pattern, with only the occasional hiccup or anomaly. You could argue this consistent pattern shows composure and strength. Normally, irregular and sporadic rhyme schemes signify strong emotions. The occasional hiccup in the middle of the pattern ultimately shows this embrace of challenges, or things that just don't go according to plan, considering the rhyme scheme continues on normally after it. Aside from this reaffirming that Clancy has developed since Heavy Dirty Soul, this is not the same person we saw succumb to Nico in Trench. This also acts as an explanation as to why Clancy was able to resist being smeared by Nico in the contract. He's grown stronger and more confident in himself as a person, to the point that Nico cannot break him down and force him to submit. In the lyrics and music video of the contract, as well as the European FPE letters, we are told that Clancy plans to go against the Torchbearer's plan and betray him. Not only that, but the character card in the Dark Clancy box set also confirms this. The document's file notes state that Clancy displays increasing autonomy and behavioural divergence. In case you were wondering if this was still a thing, the lyrics of City Walls also re-emphasise this point too. Firstly, there is the usage of like a serpentine. Serpents in general are considered to be a symbol of rebirth due to their ability to constantly shed skin and renew themselves, which could potentially be foreshadowing Clancy's rebirth as the Nova Bishop, which we all knew was coming from the European FPE letter. Speaking of allusions to the FPE letter, "Rip You Out of Your Seat" was a lyric in my mind that I always took to be a reference to Clancy's desire to wear the crown, the seat potentially being the bishop's throne, which goes to show that he hasn't changed his mind in City Walls. He still intends to rule Dema. Arguably, the biggest lyrical emphasis of Clancy's betrayal is "I write a promise in pencil, but my loyalty's in pen. Use a mistake as a crooked stencil and we trace it back again" in verse 2. Writing in pen is permanent. It cannot be erased unlike pencil, essentially meaning that Clancy's loyalty is unshakable, but his promises can be broken. This lyric becomes even more heartbreaking for the Torchbearer when you consider that in the contract, within the lyrics and the actions of the music video, Clancy states that he promised you a contract, directing that lyric at TB. The promise, the contract, is the plan on how to change things, how to free Dema. Clancy is loyal to the idea of the Bandito movement of removing the bishops, but he is not keeping his promise to the Torchbearer regarding their plan to liberate the city. In fact, the end half of this lyric doubles down on this. Even if his divergence is a mistake, he will trace it back again. He would do it again because he is certain on this path. There are more signs of things going wrong, not just Clancy's deviation. The lyrics seem to echo a worrying pattern we saw in Overcompensate. Clancy's confidence is excessive. He is displaying signs of hubris. This is also something that is affirmed in the Dark Clancy character card. Hubristic tendencies reported post-escape. All of the confident statements encouraging Nico to hit him where he is vulnerable highlights this, because it could suggest he's not considering the consequences of his actions. He could cause himself real and severe harm, but he doesn't consider that because of his own confidence in himself. Throw a left, take you right to the chest. Even the semantic field of violence illustrates this. As violence, battles, they harm both parties, but Clancy does not seem to be aware of this given his confidence in it and promotion of it. He calls the Banditos "my team" in verse 1, which just comes across as highly arrogant, considering that the Torchbearer also leads the Banditos with him. It's their team, not just Clancy's. In verse 2, "whilst in a city with no entrance there is not a retreat" is a statement meant to assert Nico's inability to escape from Clancy. It also shows there's no escape for Clancy either. There's no way out of the city for either of them, as just as having no entrance to something also implies there is no exit, there is no acknowledgement of this fact within the lyrics. He is once again missing the warning signs of his own downfall. Finally, we have "was this a sideswipe or did you picture this in a dream?" Sideswipe in general means to strike something from an angle unexpectedly, kind of like attacking someone outside of their peripheral vision. However, sideswipe has also been used lyrically by the Pilots before. In the digital remains of Clancy, we have the verse "they say keep your chin up but keep your head down. Paradox poisoned the pond we're all drinking from. Left, right, then side swiped." Within the song Silver Weighted Sun. This was the original lyrics for Overcompensate. This reference to the original lyrics of Overcompensate, a song about excessive confidence and recklessness, suggests that Clancy has not grown from the unhealthy behaviours he exhibited there, of rushing into things overconfident, overcompensating with his actions and behaviour, and completely missing the warning signs. So there you have it. City Walls is ultimately a song showing both Clancy's growth and where he has remained stagnant. And this is why he fails to truly break the cycle. Did that fool you too? I haven't been entirely honest. Much like Clancy is not fully honest to you, the listener, if you take the lyrics at surface level. This story does not end on Clancy failing because he is too confident, nor does Clancy betray Torchbearer because of his arrogance. In fact, that lack of awareness I said Clancy displays with his hubris was a lie. Clancy is perfectly aware of the consequences of his actions, of the warning signs he missed, and accepts them. Remember, this song has the purpose of confronting Nico. It's like a diss track on him. It narrates their battle, and so this hubris, this overconfidence, is just a mask to hide his weaknesses and anxieties to Nico so that he can successfully overcome him. It is a game of pretend, to deceive Nico into thinking he is untouchable. No one enters a battle being honest about their fears and shortcomings, do they? Not only that, one could argue that it is used to present himself as capable to the banditos. It might be the furthest they've reached. And he doesn't want to jeopardize their hope and success by revealing that he isn't as strong as they have purported him to be. So, what proof do we have lyrically that this overconfidence is a mask? Firstly, the lyric of Like a Serpentine. In American English, the use of the adjective serpentine can be used to describe something treacherous. Moreover, in pop culture, snake symbolism has generally adopted this perception of being untrustworthy or two-faced, so there are generally hints towards Clancy not being honest to us regarding himself and his own emotions. The main part of the song that exposes this, however, is the bridge and outro. My smile wraps around my head, splitting it in two. It ultimately states that his smile, his persona, his overconfidence is breaking him down, breaking him apart, which is a complete contrast to how steadfast and composed Clancy is within earlier lyrics. It suggests that how he portrays himself within earlier lyrics was nothing but a lie that is slowly becoming unraveled the more the song goes on. We also have I don't have a clue how I can keep the top half glued, which also presents something similar. In earlier lyrics, he's confident, he has everything planned and prepared, he always knew he was going to take down Nico, he's actively immune to Nico's tricks, and is asking for a challenge with certainty. He has ensured that he's put Nico in a position where he cannot escape. And yet here, Clancy sounds uncertain. He's clueless. He doesn't have any answers on how to keep himself together or if he can keep on going at this rate, which showcases that the confidence he has shown us isn't entirely true. If Clancy was genuine about his confidence and hubris, these notions of uncertainty, these thoughts of being broken down wouldn't exist. In a way, this seems like an allusion to the themes of Scaled and Icy, of propaganda and censorship, of pretending and hiding any weakness or dissent. This bluster and overconfidence, used to present a united and prepared front with the Banditos, specifically belies the truth of Clancy's feelings. He still feels isolated. From the rebellion, from the Banditos, even from Torchbearer. The chorus arguably exposes this the most. I wonder where you are, I wanted you to show me. Firstly, Clancy wondering where Torchbearer is, because it realistically only makes sense that the U is TB, already goes on to show that he feels isolated, and wishes the other was here with him, or potentially needs the other to be there. Wanted is in past tense, implying that the hope for Torchbearer to show him the way out of Dema no longer exists. This chorus as a whole translates to Clancy losing the hope of Torchbearer helping him because TB isn't here to show him. Torchbearer not being there to show him this ultimately indicates that Clancy has to do this on his own, further showing his isolation. Moreover, one could even argue that this lyric as a whole, including the way around the city walls, is a callback to the isolation Clancy faced in Scaled and Icy. Clancy was alone in Dema, exploited by the bishops, hoping for someone to come and help him escape, only for that to never happen. This neat narrative callback to the events of Scald and Icy could imply that these are events that Clancy hasn't necessarily moved past or been able to heal from. He hasn't recovered from that intensive period of extreme vulnerability and isolation. To put the final nail in the coffin, the chorus ends with, "And now the night has fallen, abandoned by the sun." The night is often a time associated with struggle, especially with that of mental health in 21 Pilots' lyrics. Meanwhile, throughout the story, the sun and natural light have been associated with the Banditos, from the torchbearer literally being named after the flame he holds, to one of the main Bandito slogans being "East is up," for that is the direction where the sun rises. As a result, this means that Clancy feels abandoned by the Banditos, those who are symbolized by the sun, on his own, as he navigates a period of intense struggle. Then, to look at structural techniques, the consistent use of a "w" sound in the chorus creates this almost guttural sound. It's a constant throughout the lyrics, but really prominent in the chorus, and depicts this idea of being emotional, particularly upset, which, given the meaning of the chorus, just doubles down on the extent of how alone Clancy feels in this. Furthermore, whilst the first person pronouns have already been discussed as a symbol of control and domination, the constant emphasis of just "I" only further illustrates isolation, of separation from the rest of the Banditos. Hell, aside from just one mention of "we," most of the time Clancy refers to himself as separate from the Banditos. Lines of the yellow tape, "They're moving quiet. That's my team. Now they're waiting on me." The other thing this hubris masks is the true reason for Clancy going against the torchbearer: fatigue. Clancy is tired of fighting. He can't keep going, and as a result, he doesn't see any other way out aside from just giving in to the bishops, to Dema, and trying to do better from there. Completely liberating Dema and solving the problem is something he is too tired to achieve properly. The chorus lyrics are where this is the most indicative. The way around the city walls, the way on through, suggests that, as of current, Clancy cannot see a way out of Dema. He doesn't know how to truly escape it. He is still stuck in Dema mentally. And this suggestion is just left like that. No additional lyrics, no follow-up with a swagger or confidence, no subversion of him telling us he has a plan. Clancy doesn't seem to be acting upon the information he reveals to us. He simply states that he cannot escape Dema. It's almost resigned, like he's accepting his fate. And this acceptance, this complete lack of fight that contrasts the rest of the lyrics, illustrates that fatigue. Similarly, the chorus ends on "abandoned by the sun." Again, this is a very matter-of-fact statement that's never refuted or subverted or further touched upon. It is a complete contrast to the confidence and optimism of the rest of the lyrics. It is resignation. He has resigned himself to being abandoned, and just like before, that acceptance indicates exhaustion, a lack of energy needed to challenge things. The final lyric that unveils this fatigue is "This is the last time that I try" in the bridge. Not only is this a blatant admission that he cannot fight anymore, this is the last time that he attempts anything, but this is the last lyric of the song. We are left on resignation, on Clancy admitting there is no fight left in him anymore. Finally, there are a few small structural techniques. Throughout the song, the verses escalate into something shorter with a slower pace, as opposed to the lengthy and rapid rap verses. It illustrates a sense of dwindling energy, of being tired. Similarly, one could argue the mellow bridge also illustrates this, given how much slower and more stripped back in instrumentals it is. The music itself reflects Clancy's state of no longer being as composed or hiding behind masks. The truth of his exhaustion has been exposed. City Walls is, in all honesty, quite sad with the story it tells us. It shows that Clancy has grown, but is still affected by the isolation he faced in Scaled and Icy. How the behaviour of having to cover things up and pretend in that era still affects him to this day, with how he feels he has to cover up his true feelings and his exhaustion with the whole thing, so that he can effectively face Nico on his own and also instill confidence within the Banditos. And it results in him giving in instead of breaking the cycle, because he simply cannot see a way they actually can break the cycle at this point, and he doesn't have the energy to try any further.
And there's a music video that comes with it, and I think it's worth watching, and let us know how you feel about it.
City Walls picks up directly from where Paladin Strait left us, if the intro music being Paladin's ending theme wasn't already a direct giveaway. Also, technically, the video uploaded for City Walls isn't just a music video for this song alone. The end credits also features Intentions, which has a bunch of interesting lore information within it. As a result, this will be analysed separately in the Intentions analysis. A basic summary of the music video is that Clancy fights a pensioner, Torchbearer grows worried, and takes a group of banditos to scale the tower to assist Clancy. Clancy ends up getting stabbed, temporarily dies, and then comes back to basically flashbang Nico to death. We then get the absolutely devastating shot of Clancy taking down the red curtains once all the banditos have arrived, draping himself in a cloak and becoming the Nova Bishop, then handing the cloaks out to each of the banditos. The Torchbearer is the only one who rejects the offer, in an eerily similar parallel to Clancy rejecting Torchbearer in the contract, leaving the tower and stating the banditos would find the next Clancy, who's still out there somewhere, and that they would try again, always as the sun shines on Dema for the first time. I was then shot 57 times. Fortunately for me, and unfortunately for all of you, if the ending was this simple, I would be out of the job. There are a lot of questions that this music video raises, however, that need a bit more analysis and explanation to answer. As already established, the lyrics have already given us quite a few answers. How was Clancy able to stop being smeared by Nico? He simply has grown stronger to the point that Nico no longer has an impact on him. Why did Clancy decide to go his own way and become the Nova Bishop? The events of Scaled and Icy, of being isolated, had never truly been recovered from, no matter how much Clancy tried to ignore it or bury it with hubris. As a result, when it comes to it, Clancy's perception that he needs to deal with this burden on his own only results in him growing tired and seeing no other way out to solve the Dema issue, aside from becoming a bishop, restarting the cycle, and trying to be better from there. Because he doesn't have the energy to decipher how to break the cycle properly, to see the way out. These are the rest of the questions that are needed to be answered by the music video. What was the purpose of the flashbacks? How did Clancy survive being stabbed by Nico? And what does the ending of the music video mean? So, the flashbacks. These show events from past music videos, specifically Heavy Dirty Soul, Jumpsuit, and Levitate. During them, whenever Clancy sees Nico, he runs. I think this acts as proof of what was discussed in the lyrics, that Clancy is not fully up to the task of taking on Nico, but just externally pretends he is. Instead, he still fears Nico to some degree, even if he is of the belief that Nico has no power over him anymore, and still continues to want to run from him every time he appears, instead of facing him head-on. These flashbacks also act as a moment of epiphany, of realization that he needs to face Nico because he can't escape him no matter how far he runs. As Clancy gets stabbed, we see him stop running with a resigned expression. He has to face Nico, and this is the last time he can do so. The next question is how Clancy survives being stabbed by Nico, and the answer is surprisingly, for once, pretty simple. That flashbang that I mentioned earlier was actually Clancy's unique way of seizing without the Ned horns. We know it's seizing largely because the end result is the disappearance of Nico, much like the other bishops in Paladin Strait when Clancy was using the Ned horns. And because the 21 Pilots symbol that Clancy makes with his hands has also already been seen before in the lore. At the beginning of Paladin Strait, we get visuals of Ned's horns specifically arranged in the symbol of the band. We also know the bishops can seize without the horns. In Paladin, they seize the dead Glorious Gone by producing bright white light that forks out like lightning from their hands, similar to Clancy's sudden flashbang. Yes, I am going to keep calling it this. Everything else from there is fairly logical. We know seizing can be used to steal life from vessels to extend one's own lifespan. This is what Clancy has done here. He has utilised seizing to save himself from death by stealing life from Nico. The ending of the music video is also one that is fairly simple as well to explain. Firstly, it confirms the existence of the cycle, and that now, as Clancy has taken on the mantle of Nico, the cycle will restart. The Heavy Dirty Soul theme plays at the end, which signifies a return to the very start of the cycle. Quick side note, I saw on Twitter that combining City Walls and Heavy Dirty Soul just makes it look like Torchbearer is the one waking up to the new cycle. The cycle starts with him, and low-key that is just devastating. Torchbearer is really out here battling Clancy for most tortured OC by Tyler Joseph at this point. Anyway, back to the video. The words exchanged between the Bandito and Torchbearer at the end also affirm this. I really liked this Clancy. That isn't him anymore, but he's out there waiting for us to find him. The cycle has restarted, with Clancy as Nova Bishop taking on the role of Nico, and a new Clancy will appear ready to be found. Now, the language of this Clancy does seem to confirm a fan theory that there are multiple Clancys, although the pilots have seemingly purposefully muddied the waters because why the hell would they not? Every day I just lose a little bit of sleep and sanity because of this lore. This is where the interpretation is up to you. On one hand, you could see Clancy as a fragment of Tyler, just like how Blurryface is a fragment of Tyler and Clancy and Nico are one and the same. Each time a cycle restarts, we get a new version of Tyler to play the role of Clancy, although each version has different experiences, much like how our Clancy, our Nova Bishop, only has paint up to his mouth, signifying that he was closer to breaking the cycle than most. After all, we have seen lyrics time and time again of Tyler mentioning Blurryface is a part of him, one of his many sides. And the ending of this music video shows earlier clips from older music videos in the story, almost as if showing us another cycle restart with Tyler taking on the role of Clancy again. But in a recent interview, the pilots confirmed that Clancy is a title that anyone can take on, which implies the title of Clancy is not reserved exclusively to Tyler, and that other members of this universe can become Clancy. So for once, I'm not asserting a conclusion here, when it is very clear that the matter of Clancy's identity is meant to be up to the audience and how they see the story, what it means to them. Whether they take solace in one man's struggles with the cycle of mental health, or whether they feel that they can insert themselves in Clancy's position. Regardless, this still explains some of the inconsistencies on Dema.org by confirming there is more than one Clancy as someone takes on the role each cycle.
And we will try again. Again? Always.
So, now we know how the story ends. Clancy, believing he has to fight Nico alone due to the isolation he faced in Psy, hides his feelings behind an act of hubris to reassure the Banditos and himself, and to also fool Nico. This act has exhausted him to the core, to the point he cannot see a way to break the cycle. Not yet, anyway. And so he takes on the mantle of the Nova Bishop after stealing life from Nico, prepared to do better than his predecessor. the cycle we have witnessed restarts, and we get a shot of Clancy looking out the window, a shot eerily similar to promotional images in Scaled and Icy. No matter what happens, no matter what choices you make, there is always an escape. But that's not all there is to the ending. That is not the only thing that needs explaining. As I mentioned earlier, it is no secret this story is metaphorical. I, for one, have always been open about my exploration of the story from the perspective of it being about mental health, largely because this is the band's main focus and messaging when it comes to their lyricism. Given how this story ends, there has been a lot of debate by fans regarding what this means regarding the pilots' message for mental health as a whole, especially since the ending isn't technically a fully positive one. So, what is the message here? And is this a good or bad ending? I think firstly, it needs to be established what each character represents in the cycle of mental health. These characters are not stand-ins for Tyler and Josh respectively, otherwise a lot of the moments narratively do not make sense. Clancy choosing to become Nova Bishop is probably being the most prominent amongst these moments. As discussed in my video essay on Clancy, that album methodically tells us with its songs and track list that Clancy as a character represents the intention to stay alive and do better. As for Nico and the other bishops, we've already been given information on what they represent in the cycle of mental health ages ago. As detailed by the designer of the Blurry-Faced album cover, Brandon Reich, the 9 circles each represent qualities of us that become warped by Blurryface, thus resulting in these features making us insecure or causing us struggles. So the bishops, who are symbolised by the 9 towers of Dema, as a whole represent warped elements of ourselves that cause us suffering. Blurryface, who has been confirmed to literally be Nico, is a culmination of all of these struggles together. So Nico is the culmination of these features that causes our struggles. As for Torchbearer, I believe he represents hope. Aside from being associated with a lot of natural light that has always been an extended metaphor for the end of struggles, Truce literally states the sun will rise and we will try again, Torchbearer's notable phrases of always and I will not give up, we go back for him, present this idea of persistence and optimism in the face of struggles. Or more simply, hope for things to get better. After all, it is hope that guides our intention to stay alive and keep trying for the better. Hell, if you believe in the interpretation that this isn't Clancy's cycle, but rather Torchbearer's as I mentioned earlier, the cycle starting with Torchbearer can reflect how it is hope that kickstarts our intention to escape from our struggles, stay alive, and do better. It is hope that causes the car to verge off the road, allowing us to break free. Locations also represent something within the cycle of mental health. As discussed in Paladin Strait, Voldsoy represents rock bottom, the Bandito camp and simultaneously Trench represents a better state of mind, and Paladin Strait represents the in-between of these two states of mind. Dema, on the other hand, can be argued to be an extension of our struggles, given it is ruled by the bishop. So, now we know what each character represents, as well as what each location does. How does this frame the ending of the story? Well, to roughly translate the ending with all of this symbolism, it is basically about how our intentions to stay alive and do better in mental health can become warped by unhealthy coping mechanisms, resulting in relapse. After all, Clancy's fatigue and subsequent resignation has resulted from the unhealthy coping mechanisms of taking on the burden himself without help and a mask of overconfidence. This warping of how to achieve better by these coping mechanisms results in the warping of features of ourselves that we like, the banditos who become bishops, and consequently the rise of further struggles, the rise of Nova Bishop as the new Blurryface. Clancy's fatigued vision on how to achieve a better version of Dema, taking the easier but short-term way out by ruling Dema, has warped some of the Banditos' ideologies, as they now believe that having Clancy rule is far better than liberation. Technically, Clancy took on the mantle of Blurryface, of warping others, way before becoming Nova Bishop. He took on this mantle since Overcompensate, where he was actively convincing banditos and other citizens to serve him and his side instead. As a result, becoming Nova Bishop rather is emblematic of a relapse. It is the end result of warped intentions that have become too powerful to the point they can potentially cause harm. This story was never intended to be a simple narrative about overcoming and eradicating your struggles. The album of Clancy is proof of that. And regardless, the Pilots have always been a band that focus on exposing mental health for what it is, rather than simply giving easy-to-swallow platitudes. It is this that earned them quite a bit of controversy within the industry, if any of you remember the Neon Gravestones debacle. It makes sense then that this story is rather a cautionary tale against employing unhealthy coping mechanisms. Do not be mistaken though. It doesn't shame or admonish its audience if they do employ such. The very ending with Torchbearer and the Bandito makes that clear. Regardless of if relapse happens, regardless of if you lose sight of what a better state of mind truly is and how to get there is always hope. Because it's your intention to stay alive and get better that truly matters, that will result in hope always finding you. It is an acceptance of the whole cycle of mental health, the good and the bad. In fact, with Nova Bishop having the black paint underneath his nose rather than over it like Nico, it implies there has been improvement in breaking the cycle. It implies, rather, that these instances of relapse are necessary to grow and achieve something better. Each cycle teaches us something new. This story is beautiful, and its message nuanced. Hope will always find you. Just intend to stay alive regardless of what coping mechanisms you choose and what you do, how far you fall, and how much progress you lose in eradicating your own blurry face and Dema. There's always tomorrow to try again, always another cycle, always another lesson to be learned from where you fall. Intend to stay alive and hope for the better, because it's worth it. Hi! Oh my god! This is the longest video I have ever produced. If I look at the script, it's 6,300 words. That is crazy. It is the longest script I've ever produced. But I hope this potentially 40-minute long video was worth it. I also hope this made sense. I always worry with longer scripts that my core idea or core message I want to talk about ends up getting lost, so let me know if I did a horrible job and I will try and explain it better in the comments. So yes, thank you so much everyone for waiting 3 months for this video. Sorry it took so long. It just, as I said, this is the longest script I've ever written. I've got law coursework going on as well in the background and vibing with a chronic illness. You know, no rest for click tubers, god. If you're wondering what the next video is going to be about, I'm doing a theory video next, so hopefully that should be out in like 2 weeks tops, not 3 months. And then after that, we will move on to analysing the rest of Breach, starting with Raw Fear. So either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.